Okay, welcome back. So what have I been up to? Other than trying to keep warm because of the cold, I've been out with some Ilford Delta 400 and I've push processed it to 3200. But not just to show you those photographs, I've done a comparison between Ilford Delta 400 push processed and Ilford Delta 3200 and see if we can see the difference. There is a significant difference. They were both developed in Microfen. They were taken with the same camera, the same lens, but they were taken on different days. It was just the way things were. I've only got one camera that will run at 3200 ISO, and I didn't want to do hand metering because obviously you can get differences quite easily with that. So what you're going to see is you're now going to see me out and about taking these photographs and seeing the 5 places I selected that I want to show you, and then do a comparison afterwards. So you'll see me out photographing, then you'll see the comparisons afterwards, and we'll talk about those then. All right, thanks. So this is the first shot I take, and it's always this cafe sign. The reason for that is it's like a control. I do it with all of the films I'm testing, so I can compare them against each other. So when I'm looking for a film to take a particular shot, this is one of the go-to places I take a shot of. However, I do a lot of other tests as well, not just this one, and I'll show you all the other places I'm going to photograph within this comparison as well, so you can actually see them on footage as well as still. Here we are, and this was the next shot out of the group of 5 I wanted to do a comparison on, and I've actually just taken this shot, and it's a 500th of a second at f8, which was the same as it was when I photographed it last time. So we should get a good comparison with the two, and I'm hoping that the grain and the sharpness is going to be, pretty much the same, but who knows. Okay, so the last 2 shots I couldn't talk when I was there because it was right next to the waterfall over there, and it would have been too noisy. So these are the last 2 shots that I took. Okay, so these are the 5 comparison shots I took, and you saw me show you them when I was out and about taking the actual photographs. They were taken on different days, but the lighting conditions were pretty much identical. The time of day was within a few minutes of taking the other photographs, so they're pretty close. What I find interesting is just how much more grain this photograph on the right has. Now, they're all on the same side, but whichever photograph I use, they're all on the same side. But looking at this photograph here, it's actually the contrast is, I don't know, kind of wishy-washy, whereas the one on the left-hand side is actually, quite good, nice high contrast. So also the grain again is heavy on this side, and the whites look a bit very much muddy, and less so on this side. Looking at the no authorized access, you can see here it's hasn't got as high contrast as this one here, but they do vary, which is quite interesting, and I'll show you the next shot. So this is kind of weird. The actual bricks in this shot look higher contrast than the bricks in this shot. The one on the right looks more grainy, the one on the left looks more contrasty with less grain. What I can tell you about this is down an alleyway where no light really gets. So the actual light difference, there's nothing in it at all. But you can see from here on the outside of the no cycling sign, the reds have come up really quite dark. But on this one, they're actually light. Now, I think that's to do with the differences in the film emulsions. Although they're the same branded Delta 400 and 3200, they do still have different characteristics, and I think that's what is causing that. Another thing I've noticed, this one seems a little bit softer than this side, or am I just seeing that? So I want to see what you think about that. Okay, let's move on. So here's one I always use for different comparisons, and I zoomed in to this one and went to the other side of the room, and they don't look that far out from each other at a distance, but when you look at them close up like we've got now, the diamond shape here, you can obviously see it's more muddy than this one here, and I'm thinking to myself, is this one on the left softer than one on the right? And then when you realize what that is, if I come back out, the depth of field drops off from this side to this side. So they're actually pretty much identical when you actually look at them closely, other than the contrast and the grain. So when you come over here, you can see the C there and the C here. They're pretty much the same. Again, you can see the grain is softer and finer this side and much more raw and gritty this side. So let's come back. And this one's quite interesting. This one looks slightly softer and this one looks slightly sharper. Now that may have been due to my focusing, but what's interesting is when you zoom in and you look at the actual tiny little letters on the VKC, you can see how much clearer they are on this side against this side. So obviously this is far more grainier, and again, this is I prefer the whites on this one, and that's not really a white on there at all. That's quite gritty and grainy. So, and we'll go to the last one, and this sign again. Remember, this is a yellow. It's not a white. I think this, as I say, might be down to the characteristics of the film, even though they're meant to be the same type of emulsion. So if we zoom in a bit, you can see obviously the one on the right is far more grainy and gritty, and the left is it is actually softer. So if you actually pull across, you can see the AY there and the AY there. Let's zoom out just a little bit so you can see it a bit better. It looks sharper here than on here. Again, each of these photographs was taken using pretty much identical exposures. I was the same distance, pretty much the same distance away from them. So my conclusion is the one on the right is sharper but more grainy. The one on the left is softer and has got a better contrast to it. Okay, so now the big reveal. The one on the left is the Ilford Delta 400 push processed, and the one on the right is the Ilford Delta 3200 as is. I like the fact you can push a 400 and not get all that grain. And then on the one on the right, I quite like the grain, I quite like the muddiness of it. However, I think what it is, it's because of the way I developed it. I developed them both in Microfen. So it gives you a soft, so it says it can push process and you don't actually get an increase of grain. And that's why I tried it. So which ones did you prefer? Did you prefer the push processed or did you prefer the 3200? Personally, I preferred the 400 push processed. It gave me a lot better contrast, a lot finer grain. In fact, I was really surprised at how well they come out. But obviously we've all got our own different opinions, and I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope that you carry on to watching my videos. Thanks, see you in the next one.